The message has to be memorable, credible, and distinctive. Memorable, credible, distinctive. Now, distinctive is creative. Memorable and credible, it's got to be the truth. You got to live up to what you're going to say. And memorable is it sticky?
Advertising is a tax you pay for not being remarkable. Welcome to Todd Liles and the Wizard of Ads, a podcast for business owners who want to become remarkable. Telescope, Todd Liles is going to take you deep into the mind of Roy H. Williams, the Wizard of Ads, to unleash the timeless truths and secret strategies that have helped him build dozens of America's most successful businesses. Do you want to build a brand that wins the heart, captures the mind, and creates lasting relationships? Take a deep breath and buckle up. It's time to fly.
Welcome to part 3 of a 4-part mini-series where I am here with my friend Jake Williams. How you doing, Jake?
Doing great.
He is the president of Wizard of Ads, and I'm also here with the Wizard of Ads, Roy H. Williams.
He's my son.
Thanks for existence, Dad.
Nepotism is a real thing, and it's alive and well.
Well, it only took me 12 years to get to where I could, scrub toilets and all the rest. So
his apprenticeship was
it was long.
All of his 20s and 30s, yeah.
Yes. It was just a joke.
I know.
It's just a joke.
I know.
Hey, today we're going to jump into the topic of creativity. There's a term here called creativity stack. We're going to talk about why it is so important, and you have data for us. So if this is a listener who's driving in their car on their treadmill, working out, great. Keep doing what you're doing. But later on, check out the YouTube channel because there's going to be some graphs that you're going to want to see. So Jake, you've got this statistic up here, and the numbers are just blowing my mind where it says target audience, a multiplying effect of 1.1 versus creative quality of 12. So what does that mean?
So there's a lot to unpack here. What we're talking about, this is sourced from the Drivers of Profitability in 2023 by Paul Dyson. He looked at 28,000 global campaigns. This was presented in...
Big data set.
Yeah, so big data set. This was presented in accordance with, I think, some of the System 1 people were using it, and all of the top marketing effectiveness researchers have this in the back of their minds when they're talking about the notion of performance marketing we've discussed in the past versus brand equity, long, short, online versus offline, et cetera. And what he found was the 3 circles that are worth pointing out to you. The single biggest driver and multiplier for advertising profitability is brand size. So if you are dominant today, it is easy to remain dominant tomorrow. And so there is an advantage to being the 800-pound gorilla.
So the brand size has a 20-time multiple factor.
Right. And
the creativity has 12-time multiple factor.
And that is the way that little guys can compete.
Right.
And so that is the entire thing. If you had a circle with a number on it that could describe what Wizard of Ads is worried about, we don't say the message, or we don't say the media makes the message work. We say the message makes the media work. And so what we talked about mostly in the first couple episodes had a lot to do with where you were spending your dollars. And we didn't spend as much time talking about the critical thing. If you are going to be doing long-term brand building, that determines whether it was a sound investment or not. And so it's not just that you need to be doing long-term brand building and you need to be doing brand priming and you need to be doing all this stuff. If you have a weak message, if you have no creative quality, then it's not any more effective than continuing to do what you're doing.
The message has to be memorable, credible, and distinctive. Memorable, credible, distinctive. Now, distinctive is creative. Memorable and credible, it's got to be the truth. You got to live up to what you're going to say. And memorable is it sticky? Will it get it? We were talking about Tucker Carlson in a previous episode. He hadn't worn the bow tie in 20 years, but a bow tie is distinctive. It's weird. It's memorable because you'd never see bow ties except on little Poindexter nerds. And he played a Poindexter nerd when he was young. He just played the definitive little Ivy League Poindexter nerd, and he worked it. He pulled it off. And he seemed like a really smart little Poindexter nerd. And then he got older, and he morphed into who he is today. But people, you say, what kind of tie does he wear? People still say?
They still see him with a bow tie.
Right.
Yeah.
So to stay on target with target audience, right? This will be our jumping off point from let's ease off a little bit with spending all your money in pay-per-click and performance marketing. Target audience they're showing as a 1.1 potential multiplier in comparison to creative quality at a 12.
Yeah.
So that's not my words. That's the 28,000 global campaigns as studied by the best in the business. And they were finding this unexpected outsized role.
So they're saying creative, if 1.1 versus 12.
Right.
They're saying creative is 11 times more powerful, 11 times more effective, 11 times more important than targeting.
Exactly.
Thank you.
And so right now, everyone is spending a lot of money to find the person who needs plumbing repair today,
right,
because they think targeting and the Google zero moment of truth, right, and all of that is the way to win the sale. And they don't have any other tools in their toolkit. No one's explained to them how to get off the pay-per-click treadmill. And it's not, like I said, just that you have to reach people earlier and more often. Mm-hmm. It's also what you're saying to them, because they don't care about you as a plumber unless they have a plumbing emergency, unless you happen to be likable and entertaining and interesting enough. People
if they
watch
feel
them,
like they know you and they like, oh, it's him. Everybody quit talking, turn up the radio. I love this guy.
Right. And so I remember in one of your earlier episodes, you talked about your dad likes to watch the Mayhem ads, right? And so he'll, with the TiVo, go back and watch the Mayhem ads because they're just entertaining as all heck. And so that's what we're trying to talk about when we say creative quality and all the rest, is you can become beloved if you actually have something that is entertaining and true and has that emotional appeal, and you just make people feel good when they come across your ad.
So I want to ask a couple questions because I'm thinking about the listener, right? And you're going to see this graph. Can I see that graph again?
Sure.
You're going to see this graph in the show notes. But the bottom three things here, and the lowest of all, and by the way, this is return on investment multiplier. That's what this number represents. 1.1 target audience, followed by 1.2 lay down phasing. Jake, I'll put you on the spot a little bit here. What is lay down phasing, or do you know?
I don't know, and I don't care because it's 1.2. I'm trying to get people to pay a little bit more attention to their creative quality and a lot less attention to the stuff that just isn't moving the needle.
Well, let me go to 1.6. 1.6 is the cost and the product seasonality of a thing, which is interesting to me, right? Because if you look at what like the typical thinker is in our business, I don't know what lay down and phasing is, but I know what target audience and the cost and product seasonality is. And I can tell you that squarely says I'm an air conditioning company, I'm a plumbing company, I'm an electrical company. But if we flip out over here on the other side, the two biggest factors, one, as Jake and Roy already said, it's brand size, and we're not going to do anything about brand size today. Mm-hmm. We got to, going back to the example that we used in episode 2, we've got to slowly over time add mass to our planet. Mm-hmm. But creative quality. So now here's the thing, right? Creative quality has a multiplier of 12. Some people can be creative, like who is it? Brad at Radiant Plumbing.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. He's
very
a genius.
naturally creative.
He's a genius.
But most people cannot be very creative.
No.
So that's where that's where adding in a partner makes sense, and people go, well, it's expensive. Is it really expensive if it's a 12 times a multiplier compared to a 1.1? I don't think so. But Jake, I want to ask you about this other concept, which is called creativity stack, mm-hmm. which means there are many components of creativity. Would you take us through what that is?
Sure. So this is by no means the answer. Roy's going to have an answer. Everyone that studied this is going to have different answers. But for purposes of answering the data-driven best way of explaining outcomes of marketing campaigns with broad data sets, I'm again leaning on System 1 and Effie. They have one of the better data sets, and they have, in their most recent creative dividend publication, added some extra little green dots, some green text for multipliers to profit that they didn't have in the previous version. So I am geeky enough. Alex asked me, are you into Star Trek? And I was like, is it just my vibe? And he's like, no, you mentioned Star Trek. I'm like, yeah, I'm that geeky. So I'm geeky enough that I've got the old version of the creativity stack from 2024, and now I've got their new version in 2026. And I'm like, I see what you did there, Andrew. And so he's got now 4 different things in the creativity stack that he's describing.
And I want to talk about each of those after you name them.
Things that multiply effectiveness.
Yep.
So consistency is number 1 in what they're calling a profit multiplier. And so you have to allow consistency to compound creativity. And they're calling that a 2.9, meaning that those who had the most creativity in their campaign, the top quartile, were 2.9 times as profitable as those who had the least consistency. So that's pretty gigantic when you think about it. What that really means when you break it down is people who have an intentional plan and they stick with it with consistency, they're about 3 times as effective as people who just have throw it at the wall, see what sticks, no plan. And so if you had nothing else, even a bad plan, if you were consistent about it, you're probably going to beat the people who have no plan.
Right.
That's good to know.
Shall I go into 2, 3, and 4, or do you want to talk about consistency?
Consistency at a 2.9, okay? 2026 is going to be a year of leapfrogging. This is when you can overtake a company from behind. They get down on their hands and knees. Remember play leapfrog?
Oh, 100%.
And then you come running up from behind and you put your hands on their back and leap over them and keep running. And what I'm saying is, don't want to get into the weeds on this. I anticipate people's hesitancy to spend money is going to increase in 2026. It's going to be a tough year. I've told all my clients, most of them, some of them are not going to be, they're not going to be hampered or hindered as much as most of us. But for most people, I said, if you do your 2025 numbers again, it's a win. 2026 is not a year to have a stretch goal because you're going to find money is tight. You're going to find people are reluctant to spend money. They're going to keep driving the old car instead of a new one. They're going to keep repairing the old one instead of buying a new one, whatever it is. Not everybody, by no stretch of the imagination, but enough people, it's going to make it a tough year. Now, what are the 2 things that people do when money gets slow? They lay a bunch of people off and they cut their ad spend.
Yeah.
All right, let's go to consistency. My memo this coming Monday, which will be February 2nd, okay, the Monday morning memo, goes into detail about this. And I wrote it yesterday, and my point is the people that continue to advertise 52 weeks a year are now advertising in a vacuum. The competitors have gone silent, and you can gain market share. Now, are margins going to go down? I believe they are. I do. I don't want to defend that in this moment. We're talking about somebody else. But the point is, I think it's going to be shorter margins, but the smart clients are saying, I'm going to increase my market share. And then that increased market share, while nobody else is advertising, and I continue to advertise consistency every week, and everybody else goes silent, they become the big brand. Remember what I said, big brand is what you can't overcome her? When everybody goes quiet and hunkers down, you become the new big brand. And that will happen, and leapfrogging will happen in 2026. But they have to have emotional staying power, financial staying power, and courage, right, to do this, because they may do a bunch more jobs and have the same profitability they had in 2025. But they gained market share. Right. They gained a whole bunch of new customers. They stole customers from other companies because they were still in business, even though money is tight, and everybody else went out of business because they're going to keep their powder dry. They're going to keep their money in the bank. They're going to wait till money's flowing again. And I'm going, yeah, but the people that aren't cowards are going to overtake you, and you will never catch up because now they'll have size, they'll have mental availability, they'll have share of voice, they'll have share of mind, and if they have creativity on top of consistency, so consistency is a 2.9, emotion's a 2.4, and then you look at showmanship's a 1.6, and distinctiveness is a 1.4. Consistency, emotion, showmanship, distinctiveness. That is what the creative stack is. That's it. And I'm saying it's not hard to do. It just doesn't sound like an ad. And everybody wants it to sound like, well, Todd, I want you to talk about me. And I want you to talk about the things I want to talk about. And I want to educate the customer so that they like me better than them other people because I'm better and I can prove it. And just listen to me explain it. And it's like, no. If you just make them like you, If you make them like you, you're going to win. If you keep trying to convince them that you're superior than everybody else, they're not going to like you.
You know what strikes me as funny is some of the most creative ads on the planet right now is insurance.
Yeah.
And if you think about it, it depends on your seat. You could look here and go, well, of course they've made insurance creative. It's boring. What else are they going to do? And I'm going, yeah, they've made something really boring fun. Anything could be fun and
tax
creative.
software never did that.
Now remember, insurance companies have vast money, and they're all interchangeable. Kind of like air conditioning companies and plumbers and electricians. They're all interchangeable. And to pretend that this company can do something that no other company in that category can do is just silly.
Right.
You know?
Well,
go ahead.
So I know that there's a ton we can talk about. I do want to keep us on target with getting more into consistency and emotion. We can leave distinctiveness and showmanship a little bit more for later. But if you go to the 2024 version of the Creative Dividend from the same authors, this is one that I think really encapsulates exceedingly well. There's only one chart I like better than this chart, but it almost encapsulates everything. If you needed to understand what you're doing today in spending money at Google and how it feels like you're on a treadmill, if you want to contrast that to what we suggest people do and what the data suggests people do, they're saying reach everyone with emotional ads. And at the bottom, you'll see it says less than 3 months, 3 months and more, 1 year, 2 year, 3 year campaign duration. So it's not just reach everyone with emotional ads. It's reach everyone with emotional ads over time. So do you want to ask your questions before I start describing?
Well, I'm sitting here reading it, right? And this, for the listener, for the viewer, this is very obvious. But for the listener, it's a graph, and it says % of campaigns that report profit across all campaigns. And at the very, very top, it's 33%, broad targeting and high emotion. Below that, narrow targeting and high emotion at 26%. Then you have a 100% drop, I think is the way you would say that, at 13%, broad targeting, low emotion. And then there's something that's sitting there at 0. What does that say that's sitting there at 0?
That says narrow targeting and low emotion.
So unpack. I think for the person that's hearing it, they get the idea. Broad and high emotion goes back to something that we've heard Roy say a whole bunch of times, right? Which is narrow targeting is I'm really aiming in on a specific person. That's Facebook, and I'm honing in. Broad is radio, it's TV, it's broad. It's mass media.
It's a family reunion.
It's a family reunion.
And so this goes back to what we were saying at the beginning of this episode, right? With the notion of the 12 times on creative execution versus the 1.1 on targeting. And this is the core myth, the misconception that I'm trying to address here. And so if the bulk of your money right now is spent on paid leads through pay-per-click and various forms of lead aggregators where you're buying basically a lead, right, from someone who typed an unbranded keyword into an engine, be it Google or some other source. You're pretty much, by definition, doing narrow targeting and low emotion, right? So you're targeting people who have a broken plumbing need today or a broken air conditioner today, and it's low emotion. It's just, here I am, you need me, and now I'm going to show up on the list. You didn't have courtship. You didn't have brand associations. You didn't have anything to make them choose you over the rest, right? So narrow targeting and low emotion, according to these people, is a road to nowhere. It's literally about a flat line, right? And so there is no campaigns reporting profit across all campaigns. It doesn't matter how long you keep this thing up. Unlike the other lines on the graph, it's flat. And so better than narrow targeting and low emotion is broad targeting and low emotion. And this is if you get the media right and you start doing TV and radio and the rest, but you have a lousy message. Go ahead.
Let me jump in here and prove this case a little bit, because I know someone is listening that doesn't believe it. And I can represent it really easily for you. If you look at narrow targeting, low emotion, that's your traditional pay-per-click ad, right? And I have looked at hundreds, maybe thousands of data points from real clients. And when we look at the cost of acquisition of a brand new customer, they've never done business with you before. And we're going to take that cost of acquisition by saying, what did it cost an ad spend versus what did you receive in revenue collected from them, right? That number is easily above 20%. Now, the average person may be going, but wait a minute, we talk about ad spend being at like 10 or 8%. It's at 10 or 8% when a business has been doing it long enough collectively that their repeat customers and their loyal customers, the people that are just going to call anyway, it's costing them 0%. So when you go and say new acquisition is costing me plus 20%, and then I ask you the question, what is your typical profit margin at your business? Chances are it is 20% or less, which is why that is a 0% profitable call. The only way that you make money on that is if you are also capturing a high degree of those people in some sort of service or club membership relationship afterwards. But what we find is that most of the people that are calling off pay-per-click, I just want you to come fix the thing and leave me alone, are not interested in a relationship with you. They just wanted you to come. They wanted you to leave. So when I see that graph, I go, makes total sense to me. I've seen enough of these to know there is no money in those leads. You better be exceptional at converting them into club memberships, or you're literally just wasting time.
Your marketing is not making you succeed. In the instances of someone who's doing pure Google spend as a little guy, you're succeeding despite your marketing. And so you can make up for, with an amazing customer experience, lousy storytelling, lousy marketing, lousy ad spend. You can get some repeat customer loyalty and some word of mouth if you're just over the moon awesome. And I've talked to some of those people, and they can take a transactional buyer and win them over occasionally if they're amazing, right, into a repeat customer. But it's hard, it's thankless, it's not fun, it's not scalable. And so what I'm talking about when we're talking about the System 1 data set and all the rest is they've looked at a ton of different companies, and they're looking at the campaign itself, the money spent on the campaign. Did it generate a profit when you include how much it cost to run that campaign, right? And so that is a terrible expenditure of your limited marketing dollars, is what we're saying.
Well, Jake, this is a wonderful graph, and I think that we've really unpacked the idea of what a broad target is versus a narrow target. Let's go ahead and now talk a little bit about how do we up the emotion? If emotion is what is winning the day, how do we up the emotion in our ads?
So I'll describe this first briefly. I will show a second slide, and then Roy will talk, because he understands how to actually do emotion better than I do, and he's been in the trenches. But I'll say the 13 versus the 33 versus the 45. So the people who have not seen this on screen, 13%. That's broad targeting and low emotion. That means you're now doing some brand priming at a pretty dull level of message delivery, and it's better than nothing. But you're spending a lot of money to reach people, and you forgot to think about what you're saying to them, right? And so if you don't have anything meaningful to say, you should probably not spend any money yet. Broad targeting and high emotion, the same targeting, the same spend. If you just improve your message, you go from 13% to 33%.
It's big.
So think before you speak is generally good advice. Our parents would say it, and I would say the marketing effectiveness researchers would say it too. So broad targeting and high emotion at 33%. Two things I want to point out briefly. We're saying this as if we forgot the x-axis. We're talking about the y-axis. The x-axis is after year 3. And so number one, what we talked about in the first episode and second episode, there's a chickening out period where broad targeting and high emotion still doesn't work. It particularly doesn't work that effectively in things like grudge purchases. People don't spend money with a plumber just because they like them. They have to have a need. There's some sort of catalyst. There's an event where now you have to spend money on a plumber, and I'll go ahead and spend it with these people that I like and trust, right? But there's a delay between doing the right thing and it paying off. So you can see that after 3 months, you're still at like a 13, 14%.
Courtship takes time.
Yeah, and the thing that I like about what you put up here is that broad targeting, high emotion still comes in second place.
Narrow targeting, high emotion.
I'm looking at the start of the graph, like early.
Right.
And narrow targeting, high emotion comes in first place.
Thank you for pointing that out. That's a great observation. Go ahead.
So I mean, to me, I'm going, okay, that's pretty interesting, because that is a case to where, going back to things like Meta, that is where you could build a highly creative ad with high emotions and target it with meta. And there are really good companies that are doing this. There's some really smart people. I can't think of the name of the guys, but you know who they are. They're the ones that they do all of that creative campaign. The Harmon Brothers.
Yeah.
Harmon Brothers are they're experts at narrow targeting high emotions, right? So I just want to say, hey, if you take a look at that, that's pretty amazing. But what sits mostly at zero across the entire spectrum over 0 to 3 years.
No, I disagree that they're doing narrow targeting.
I think it's still fairly broad targeting, but it is
They're
more
on
direct.
YouTube.
They've 100% switched to broad. In fact, so if you look at their current statements today,
Right.
today they believe that even high emotion, high creative, narrow targeting in Facebook is pointless. I've seen recent studies are like, it's gotten too expensive. When we started doing this 5 years ago, they were doing it, but it was so low
Right.
of a
It was
cost of
cheap,
entry.
right.
Yeah, that's the
It
inflation
made
we
sense.
talked about.
So they've moved away from it. You're right, but
Right.
early in the day, they were focused on that.
So the fact that narrow targeting with high emotion is higher at the beginning
Yeah.
than broad targeting with high emotion, but it's only a few months.
Just a few-
and
yeah.
then broad
Yep.
targeting with high emotion, it intersects and then exceeds and continues to exceed narrow targeting with high emotion. But narrow targeting with high emotion versus low emotion is the big game changer.
That's the game changer.
And so the two low emotion are way down, the two high emotion are way up.
Right.
Even though narrow targeting with high emotion starts a little higher, it takes just 3 or 4 months before the broad targeting catches up and then outruns it significantly higher.
So I wanted to answer your question about emotion and add
Yes.
another little layer to it, because we're really talking now about messaging, right? And if you go down another couple slides, we will talk about Fluent devices and emotional campaigns. So an emotional campaign here, new slide, we're saying emotional advertising is important, but so is being distinctive. And there's now 3 different charts, or I'm sorry, 3 different lines on it. So not emotional campaigns, after 3 years, they're saying they average about 6% of campaigns achieve incremental profit, right? So it was worth the money you spent to run the campaigns in about 6% of those times if you're not emotional. Emotional campaigns is 33% after 3 years. Fluent and emotional campaigns is up to 45%. And so Fluent then becomes this question mark of how can I exceed the return on investment of an emotional campaign? Well, you're going to do it with more discipline, more intentionality, and more consistency, right? We said some of the other things about consistency being important. Here, Fluent, right, is one of the words that can start to connote consistency. So we can start talking about what a Fluent device is and a brand code is. We have in a separate chart the idea of Fluent devices, you're not you and you're hungry, and you've got the M&M's little character, right, with the little stick arms and legs from the TV shows. And what they're showing is that Fluent devices, in our world, we've called them brandable chunks. That's close to what they're calling a Fluent device. So it's a recurring element, and it can be anything.
It's a signature thing that nobody does but you.
And so most of the time people are thinking logos, they're thinking brand colors, they're thinking all the rest. They're sleeping on a lot of the other types of Fluent devices that are out there.
Fluent devices are sound. They're sound-based. They're language-based and music-based.
So, we'll get into that in great detail, but anything that is a recurring element so that you're not starting from ground zero when you touch someone with an ad, that is going to be a Fluent device, and it builds fluency across your campaign so that people recognize, oh, this is the same people that I already knew from all these other times that they reached out to me. And so first and foremost, they're showing market share gain. If you have Fluent devices in your campaigns, you see a 32% increase in market share gain. And not just that, but in profit gains, no Fluent devices versus Fluent device. Using any Fluent device takes you from a 26% achieving very large effects in your campaign up to a 34. That's a 31% increase. So if you want to increase market share, if you want to increase profits, you want to acquaint yourself with Fluent devices. This goes back to what I was saying earlier. In our very first episode, we had the 2 X graphs. And I had an X graph that was talking about high attention media versus low attention media. Here, we're saying Fluent devices are becoming more rare. So between 1992 and I think this was 2019 that they published this, it dropped from 41% of campaigns were using Fluent devices down to 12% of campaigns. And so the idea here is that it's extremely effective if you think long-term, if you plan long-term, if you commit, if you're consistent, if you're courageous, if you have all these elements where you have a story to tell and you continue telling it over time. We know that this is the most effective thing that you can do, right? That's the 45% if you're emotional and fluent. And yet, meantime, fewer and fewer people are doing them, right? It goes back to ZMOT and performance mindset.
Why do you think people are doing less Fluent devices?
It's because they're testing on an individual basis, right? Think back to what we said about performance
They're testing
marketing.
them on a short period of time.
Gotcha.
If all you're doing in a performance mindset is you're running a test and you're trying different targets with different creative, and then you're seeing what scores best, that by definition is not creating fluency across time.
This is why ROAS will always lead you to bad creative. It will lead you to an urgent offer, artificial time limit, bad creative.
So people are worshiping at the holy grail of immediate tracking, of being able to show it in a spreadsheet and say, this thing was the best of the bunch. We tested a bunch. Aren't we sophisticated? Aren't you going to bow down at our level of data-driven analysis?
Fluent device requires consistency and it requires time.
Right.
But now remember, nobody's old enough to remember this but me. I remember when Colonel Harlan Sanders was still alive, and he still owned Kentucky Fried Chicken. You know what the original slogan was?
I have no idea.
It's finger licking good.
Oh, well, I knew that. I just
It's
forgot.
finger licking good. And that was the one thing, all you had to do anywhere in America, 200 plus million people in America, and you could ask any person, anywhere, anytime, it's finger licking good. And they go, oh, Colonel Sanders, Kentucky Fried Chicken. And I'm going, yep, that's a Fluent device. Now, the very first time he said it, it didn't stick in anybody's head. But he said it enough times that it became a household word. And here I am 60 years later. 60 years later. I'm remembering that.
Well, I'm looking at this graph that Jake has on the screen now, and it's showing all of these different Fluent devices by category. And I'm just thinking about Fluent devices, right? And when you were describing what they were, and I'm going, okay, let's give some examples. You just gave an example, finger licking good. I think everybody knows the HBO Fluent device. And then a TV show comes on. Disney has a Fluent device where they show the castle and then the star goes over and it plays the little Disney music. There's tons of Fluent devices. Artists have Fluent devices. My daughter is 15, so she listens to all of the K-pop. And there's a band called Blackpink. And on all their songs, they go, Blackpink in your area. And they say it in every song at some point. And she says it with them every single time, and it cracks me up. Jason Derulo says they signed Derulo. It's in every one of his songs. If you look at DJ Khaled, he goes, another one.
Music.
We the best music. And another one. Those are his too, right?
Yeah.
So Fluent devices, you know what they are, but they're more than just that. But Jake, take us through this graph because I love this one.
Yeah, so I'll read all of them so that listeners who can't see this will hear left to right from least chance that it gets high fluency to highest. And so if fluency is the thing that can take you from a 33 to a 45, you want to know how to trigger fluency across your campaign so it becomes additive, right? It accumulates over time. So lowest is a 1.0, that's logo or symbol, followed by...
Wait a minute, a logo is basically worth a kiss on the ass? There we go. Now we have it.
And so everyone's got one. It's fairly invisible compared to some of the stuff that's a little bit more rare and that hits a little bit harder in a lot of ways. So after that, you've got celebrity. After that, brand colors. A little more effective is slogan. A little more effective is brand typeface. Now you're starting to get more effective at 1.9.
The brand typeface. The brand typeface. The font
Yes.
is more important than the logo.
Yes.
Thank you for that.
Yes.
And so now you're getting into distinct product shape at 1.9. And we can think of the Coca-Cola bottle, right? There's a lot of distinct product shapes out
28,000
there.
campaigns were studied for this data.
And so...
This is not an opinion.
I got to share something with you when he's done with
We've got
us.
a 1.9 0.9 with jingles. And so I'm a big fan. We don't have distinct product shape particularly, but I'm a big fan of jingles, Fluent device characters, and Sonic device. And it's funny because Roy has been teaching people.
Those are the top three.
Well before any of this came out. So it's interesting. If you didn't know Roy and you didn't know the partners and everything, you'd think, oh, they believe in this stuff because System 1 and the Effies found it out. And I'm like, no, they found it out after Roy's been doing this stuff forever.
Yeah,
right?
I've known it for 40 years. These guys just happen to prove it. Thank you, guys.
Sonic device number one. And then they showed Netflix. Everyone's heard ta-dum, ta-dum, ta-dum.
Mm-hmm.
Everyone's heard that at the start of Netflix.
I'll just emphasize Fluent device character, right? If we are talking about stuff that is probably familiar to a lot of your listeners,
right.
Anyone that has a character diamond, anyone that has a character that shows up across campaigns over and over again, which is pretty much all of Roy's campaigns, they're all using character as a Fluent device.
A sidekick.
Let me tell you how this saved a client a ton of money this week. Because you had sent all this to me in preparation for the show. And we got a wonderful client that's been a client with Service Excellence now for a whole bunch of years. They're now brand new with the Wizard of Ads, and Craig Arthur's their guide. He's getting them going, but the campaigns aren't launched yet. Well, last week, or maybe the week before last, he came to me and said, hey, I really think I want to redo the entire brand, and can you give me names? And I said, whoa, time out. Why in the world would you want to do that? And James is my really good friend. He wouldn't mind me telling this story. And he gives me his reason, and I go, you don't really need to do the whole thing. You've got a great-looking brand already. You got good colors. You got good font. Mm-hmm. If you want to do a little update, that's one thing. But I said, if you go to any of the big names out there, they're going to try to reinvent the wheel. I'm like, don't do that. You've already got your brand story being created by Craig, so please don't do that. If you just want an update, just talk to the guy that's already drawn all of your cartoons and has done all of your handouts. He goes, okay. Well, I'll have to show you what he came back with. He came back, and what they did was basically the brand is the same, but they encased it in what kind of looks like might go on the side of an air conditioning system. And I'll go, but it looks the same. Uh-huh. And I go, genius. And then he goes, yeah, I think we're going to probably have to, redo all the trucks and everything. And I said, time out. So then I pulled this up. Mm-hmm. And I said, take a look at this, what Jake had showed us. Mm-hmm. I said, work your way from here to there. Where's the logo update? He goes, it's there. He's like, right. I said, you're working with Craig on setting up all of your stories, these wonderful messages. They're going to come up with brandable chunks. They will evolve. We don't know where they'll finally land, but they're going to come up, right, our Fluent devices. Right. I said, you're going to be putting your energy there. Look at what's more powerful. He goes, oh. And I said, so look, if you want to do the trucks, do them in time. I said, but you're not so far away from your original logo that any customer is going to say, y'all are a different company. They look the same. Mm-hmm. You've just enhanced it by a little bit of a margin. So be done there. No more energy and effort there. Let's put it where it should be. And he goes, oh, thanks, mate.
Mm-hmm. That was good advice.
Well, this company's going to be $34 million or more this year. Mm-hmm. Multiply that by all their trucks and the distraction. Mm-hmm. Right now for them, and this is the thing, because I'm incentivized for them to grow. I want them to be very hugely successful. Right now, every time they bring something to the table and I can see it's going to be a distraction, I'm real quick to go, Mm-hmm. That's just a waste of time. No. Your energy time is too important. Let's stick to this. Let's stay focused. Mm-hmm. But they're also amazing coachable clients.
Right.
So let's go back to you there, Jay.
So thank you for that. I want to try and stay on the topic briefly of Fluent devices before we turn the page and we start talking about dull ads, and then we can probably call it a wrap on this one. But logos, as we talked about here, is percentage of ads that use distinctive brand assets, right? So previously we had been talking about, on the earlier chart, the likelihood of it being a Fluent device and having some effectiveness. And what we saw was that the thing that was the least effective was the logo followed by the color. And yet the thing that is the most likely to show up is the logo and the color.
Everybody's spending the money on the logo and the color.
It actually makes a bit of sense when you think about it, that what is new, surprising, different, what is the thing that grabs your attention? It's the thing no one else is doing. So it's not ironic. It's almost inevitable that the thing that everyone does is the thing that gets you no attention. And so logo, color, slogan are at the top, right, of everyone's doing this stuff. What's at the bottom? The bottom, you have, for visual, characters and celebrities. They're at 14% and 5%. So almost no one is using characters, even though we know that they're one of the best drivers of fluency. So if you want fluency, start using characters more. The only thing that's less used, basically, than characters, right, is on audio, sonic brand cues and music. Netflix believes in sonic brand cues. HBO believes in sonic brand cues. Very few brands have sonic brand cues, but let's look. So 6% of ads are using a sonic brand cue. If you go to what is actually effective, you can see here in figure 6, audio average is a 3.44. So average likelihood of an ad featuring different brand asset types being high versus low performing on branded attention. And so if you have an audio Fluent device, a jingle, or with a da-dum, right, sonic cue, that's making you 3.4 times more likely to get branded attention. I think it's worth investing in a little ta-dum myself. You compare that to the visual average of 1.15. So you can spend a lot of money on visual stuff, and you're at a third the effectiveness of the audio average that people sleep on, right? And so a little more in depth, we go from visual average to audio average. Let's break that down even further. Characters, they're showing here, are driving, go ahead.
And I just want to make a point to the listeners that when you go and you watch this on YouTube, you can find all of these sources. And when you go and you open up these sources on your own, these aren't the Radio Association of America sources, right?
Right.
These aren't people that are just trying to promote the fact that audio is good. They're looking across thousands and thousands of campaigns at every single level. And we just happen to be pointing out that this is the data, and it reinforces what we believe.
They're discovering what works, and what works is what Roy had discovered worked for a long time. So the reason it backs up what we've been saying is because Roy knows what he's doing.
Let's talk about characters for a second. See, you know, whenever people are talking about Ken Goodrich, everybody remembers I was a 10-year-old boy holding a flashlight for my father while he worked on air conditioners at night. That is a true story that nobody could tell but Ken. It's a very human story. Okay, creativity is always a very human thing. It's human. And an ad can either be product specific. If an ad is product specific, anybody that sells that product can use that ad.
Yeah.
It's not about your company. It's not about you. It's about this one product you sell. It's about this brand you sell. Westinghouse, okay, Maytag, Rolex. All right. Those are pointless for building your company. You're building their company.
That's right.
With your money. Number two, there's only 2 more categories of advertising left. The next one is category specific. Well, this is one of them plumbing ads. It works. It's for plumbers. And I want one of them plumbing ads that would get customers in. It's a plumbing ad that works. Okay, everybody says, okay, this is a portable ad. Nope. If it fits the whole category, it's not distinctive, it's not memorable, it has no human impact. Mm-hmm. Does that make sense?
Yes.
So anybody that writes a category-specific ad and it will work for anybody in the category is a fool, an idiot, a moron, and a son of a bitch. And I mean that in the most loving, kind, and classy way, okay? Now, client-specific. It's a true thing about this client. It's a very human thing. It's a very vulnerable thing. It's a thing that most people wouldn't have the courage to share. That is creativity.
Right.
Finding that, you have to dig for it. You have to really get to know the client. You have to dig. And it takes time to dig out this gold, that the story that only that person can tell. And it is true. And it goes deep to the core of their soul. Tell that story. That's creativity. And so everybody remembers with Ken, I was a 10-year-old boy holding a flashlight. They don't know what happened in the next 4 years, right? He had a guy working for him from Tennessee, genuinely sounded like a hillbilly. Now remember, this is in Arizona, Phoenix, Las Vegas, and, way out in the West Desert. You don't see a lot of Tennessee hillbillies out there. Mm-hmm. It's like Jethro Bodine. His name was Zach. And so I made him this very irreverent, disrespectful character that's always giving Ken crap. And he would call him Kenny G. And so Kenny G, he said, Kenny G, You play saxophone, don't you? He goes, no, I play the trumpet. Ken's a staggeringly, he's like a professional trumpet player. Most people don't know this. I mean, he's played trumpet in some big things. You know, he's like world-class trumpet player. And he goes, no, I play the trumpet. He goes, well, Kenny, and he goes, it's Ken, please. And he goes, no, Kenny, here's what I'm thinking. And so Wacky Zacky was always giving Ken crap. And the fact that Ken tolerated it and didn't like blow up on him, it made you like Ken. It's like Wacky Zacky just needs to be slapped. You know what I mean? And he's hysterically funny. But the fact that he's Ken's little sidekick character and he could say stuff that just a person who didn't give a crap would say, that I could put things in the mouth of Wacky Zacky that a customer might say if they wanted to be abrasive to Ken. And then Ken could respond in a moderated and kind and civil way and answer the question. And so Wacky Zacky was this representative of all the jerks out there that would like to challenge what Ken was saying. And so he is a very interesting character. He's a fascinating character. You were always blown away by the crap that Wacky Zacky would say. It was a real guy that really worked for Ken named Zach. And he was a genuine Tennessee hillbilly sounding kind of a character. And I just said, okay, that's a thing that we have. It's an asset. I'm going to use that. And it was a great campaign. And so my point is, characters work, personality works, true stories work, and you don't say, I'm an expert. You use a sidekick to challenge you, and then you demonstrate that you're an expert, and the listener goes, wow, he's really an expert. He actually knows what he's talking about. See what I mean? And so that's creativity. That is the definition of creativity.
And it feels like I've known you my whole life,
Right.
because the next slide I wanted to put in front of us
Right.
was the intersection of some of what we were talking about with characters and Fluent devices into creativity and what we were trying to drive for, right? If that's the 12x driver of advertising campaign profitability. So here's where all that intersects. So stay with me. Characters as the single most effective thing that you can do visually. And obviously a character can also be through audio if it's in a radio spot,
sure.
right? So that's a 6x compared to the logo at 1.17. So characters are a big driving factor. You're using them intuitively because you understand that they're one of the most powerful Fluent devices that can drive emotion and build a bond and prime people to know, like, trust and win over the relational customers. You kind of have to have a character to have a relationship, right, with a brand. So system one in the other one is now talking about differentiation and distinctiveness, important parts of the creativity stack. And the left and right, it's not well designed in this chart to show it, but you're looking at Fluent versus not Fluent ads. And what you're seeing is that the weak branding, less Fluent ads, are getting a 22% chance of growing brand differentiation. That bumps up from a 22 to a 34 when you have strong ad branding with more fluency, right? So 52% improvement in your differentiation when you have better branding with better fluency. Do you want to be different than your competitors? Then you want to have better branding with better fluency. That's a 52% increase. The only thing better than that is distinctiveness. So same contrast, less Fluent ads versus more Fluent ads. Worse campaign construction and consistency versus better campaign construction and consistency. Weak ad branding, so less Fluent, is at 19% likely to get distinctiveness. That jumps up to 32% likely to get distinctiveness among better branding. That is to say, more Fluent, better construction, right? So that's a 70% increase in distinctiveness. So the same ad spin can get you weak branding if you're not intentional about it, you're not creative about it, you're dull, right, and inconsistent. Or you can see a 52% increase in your differentiation, a 70% increase in your distinctiveness. And this is why home service companies like Roy, because he can make you different and distinct, even with
all the Wizard of Ads partners are doing this.
Right, but this is the idea of, like, Roy being the person that's sharing the anecdotes.
Right.
You can create differentiation and distinctiveness through smart campaign creation, even if the actual product itself isn't all that different or distinct.
Right. So remember, entertainment is the only currency that will purchase the attention of a too busy public. They're too busy to pay attention to what you want to talk to them about. Entertainment is the currency that will purchase their attention. And then vulnerability is the currency that will purchase their trust. And if you say something that most people wouldn't say, if you say something that reveals, it's like, wow, he's really, really spilling it. He's telling me a real true thing, which is why I knew that Aaron Gaynor would let me say, it's going to be elegant the way I do it, but I'm going to work it in. He was raised by a single mom, one of 3 kids raised by a single mom. They were really struggling, and so he will remember that his whole life, and he is not going to let anybody who's struggling like that have to do without. He just won't.
That's good.
And so because it's a real thing, it's powerful.
Yeah.
And And so I want to come full circle and close out. I know we have to do a new episode. We'll wrap this one. I've been talking about marketing campaigns and these different kind of middle variables of differentiation, distinctiveness, fluency. They're all a means to an end, right? And so people who don't love marketing, like Roy and I, what they love is return on investment. They love growing their company. Let's come full circle now to, we took the detour to the how, right? Let's go to the what and the why. The what and the why is you're doing this so that you're less dull. You're doing this so you get a better return on your advertising dollar. So this last slide is showing that the most dull campaigns are getting a $4.40 average return on investment compared to the least dull campaigns that are getting a $7.10 return on their investment. So dull campaigns pay back 40% less. So if you're going to be spending a ton of money on a message that's trying to be broadcast, you want to certainly insist that it is not dull. And that's why we fall in love with all these different techniques, is not because the campaign itself makes us smile, it's because it makes the cash register ring.
There's one thing beyond that, though. If you go to what Les Binet and Peter Field were teaching in the short of it, fame is a level above. And so when you're looking at celebrities, you can create a celebrity by just making a local business person a local celebrity, and everybody likes that person, feels like they know that person, respects that person, admires that person. And so people go, really, you can take a plumber, you can take an air conditioning company owner and make them a celebrity in their town. Absolutely. Yeah. It's just not that hard. They have to be consistent. They have to be vulnerable. They have to say yes to crazy, crazy ideas. And then what happens is people, they command attention. People love them. And when you go from highly, highly creative, not dull, to that next level of actually famous, that is when you are the monster brand. Now you're Nike. Nobody's going to catch up to you. And they can be super creative. And they got a 12-time multiple. But you've got a 20-time multiple just by being dominant, famous.
Yeah. So I happen to have one of those charts handy, and emotional. If we're talking about this last chart, if that's a 1.0 for share of voice efficiency, you contrast that to rational, which is a 0.2 in share of voice efficiency. And so
that's what everybody wants to do.
Think back to what we said in episode 1, right? Of system 1 thinking versus system 2 thinking. The emotional campaigns that appeal to the system 1 thinker, the relational buyer, are 5 times as efficient with your share of voice as the rational system 2 thinker, the transactional buyer.
Share of voice is the ad spend.
And so the only thing that's better, right, as Roy said, is fame. And there's lots of things you can do to go from just emotional to transformational and become famous.
All right, listeners, that was episode 3 of our special 4-part miniseries. The big takeaway here for you today is that when you bring creativity, when you bring fluent devices, you're going to have exponential return on your investment. And that's what you want to do, right? You want to lower your cost. You want to increase your returns. And this is the real way to do it. Join us next week as we wrap this special 4-part series.
You've been listening to Telescope, Todd Liles, and the Wizard of Ads, where the bold win and the remarkable reign. If you enjoyed this episode, make sure to like, subscribe, and follow so you never miss a conversation. If you want a copy of the show notes or watch the ads from today's show, head over to toddliles.com/wizard. This episode is dedicated to the business owners who refuse to be ordinary.